All right, y'all. Um, I thought I unpaused it, but I ended it. Um, I'm on my, I'm on my second plate right now. We on occult law number 5, occult law of technique of limitation. As we seen, the first one went very into detail. You know what I'm saying? I'm using some rice and beans, but hold the beans, cause I ain't trying to go on the beans, 2 beans, so many beans. No beans. One of the main parts and the most essential part of a true magical operation is the part which is called the limiting of the object of the operation. What does this mean? It means, first of all, magical operations involving as they do the forces of interplane deal only with forces. Interplane forces are subject to interplane laws and are certainly not subject to physical plane laws. This fact particularly everyone knows, of course, but few persons realize the implications of that fact. Mm-hmm. Basically, when you deal with interplane forces, interplane forces so the interplane laws and are certainly not subject to physical plane laws. This fact particularly everyone knows, of course, but few persons realize the implications of that fact. Look, y'all, I'm gonna come back when I'm not being interrupted as much. All right, y'all, we back. Occult law number 5. Occult law number 5. Occult law of technique of limitation. One of the main parts and a most essential part of a true magical operation is the part which is called the limiting of the object of the operation. What does this mean? It means, first of all, magical operations involving as they do the forces of the interplanes deal only with forces. Interplane forces are subject to interplane laws and are certainly not subject to physical plane laws. This fact practically everyone knows, of course, but few persons realize the implications of that fact. Interplane forces are subject to interplane laws and are certainly not subject to physical plane laws. Basically, when you deal with interplane forces, you are dealing with forces that have no confinement of any kind. 2 interplane forces occupy a single space at the same time. Interplane forces fly off in all directions at once. Time, as we know it, is not the same for them. They exist both start and finish at once, beginning and end at once. Now do you see why it says in the Bible, I am the Alpha and the Omega? The beginning and the end, and yet in order to obtain your outer desired physical end plane results, you have to work with interplane forces first. And so to handle these interplane forces, you must know something about their nature and how to work with them and how to work them. Dion Fortune did say something about it, but did not explain the full implications. You have much to learn, and I will give it to you in time and as we go along, but for the present, all you have to know is, at the start of any magical operation, a limit must be set to designate the extent of what you want to accomplish in that particular operation. Unless you do this, you are going to have trouble in getting those forces to make the transition from the plane of force to the plane of form and stay there put. You are able, by means of ordinary mental magical daily operations to contact and gather forces together quickly, but unless the gathered forces are quickly conducted into a form here on this physical plane, they will fly off as fast as they are gathered. The object desired by you in your visualization work is the form that limits the forces that your work gathers. Now appears two of these seemingly endless factors that influence magical creative visualizations work, and I trust that you are not going to blow up at their endless appearances. We will come to an end of them sometime, surely at the end of the book. It is the lack of knowledge about these things that makes our work so futile when it comes to helping ourselves through magical work. Well, we might as well get over with it. It is a law of the inner planes that once you have succeeded in getting an inner plane force to work for you or to flow into your life the way you want it to work, this force then has a tendency to keep on flowing, working. And this flowing working will keep up long after you or any other operator has achieved the original objective of the original starting of the flowing working. I note an apparent contradiction in the above and what I said before, but there is none really. I told you that inner plane forces do not operate the same as physical plane forces. It is true that inner plane forces can be gathered together quickly, and they do and can fly away as quickly, but with long persistence and other unconscious magic techniques. A person can succeed in getting the forces to flow for him, and they can keep on flowing. Consider flow the same as work. This automatic overflow can cause as much trouble and disappointment and results as no flow at all can cause. The simplest form of trouble this overflow can cause is to create a condition of tension in you after you have received the original thing visualized for, and in this tension you are vaguely dissatisfied with the whole creative visualized matter operation, and you feel that you want to go on demonstrating the same thing object over and over. And the other factor is some people do yield to that continual flowing and pressure and going on accumulating the objects first wanted beyond all reasonable need of them. This happens in the case of people who were once very poor and in great need of money a large part of their life, and who, by a sort of mental, natural, personal, creative visualization system pertaining to themselves, as explained before, started money coming to them, but having set no limit to their objective, at least for this one visualization creation, the incoming flow once started kept on coming, and in the end, the incoming flow took over their lives, and they continued to do nothing but get money. All their other objectives in life were lost sight of, and some of these people actually starved to death because they could not control the incoming flow of money to divert some of it to spending patterns. They were gripped by the power of the forces they had set in motion. They could not spend the money for what they had originally wanted it for, a good time to be had in and out of life. In the paper this morning was the story of a woman who dropped dead on a San Francisco street of starvation, and over $1,000 was found on her person by the police. Another example of this sort of thing is the story by Charles Dickens of Inman's Scourge. This man turned to the making of money because of a great love disappointment in his life, and he felt he needed money to make up for what he had lost. Scourge, having gotten a flow of money started his way, was not able to control it thereafter, and the massing of money took over his life to the exclusion of all else. This concludes the theoretical discussion of the occult law of limitation. I will give a few directions here to guide you in practices now, and give more detailed directions in the later part of the book. So, for the time being, what has been done to make your creative visualization work come out right? The first thing to do is to figure out exactly what object or thing or circumstances you want to bring about or acquire by creative visualization practices. Having made this decision, you then set down and write out in exact detail describing the objects or circumstances desired, and stating clearly that this is all that you want from this one operation. Make the end of the operation as clear as the beginning, As an example, let us assume that you are working for a piece of carpet as the Paris rag picker was. You could write down on a paper exactly what you wanted and what you wanted it for. You can also add a description of how you expect the carpet to be used and how you expect it to feel and use. This part is important, more of this later. Now conclude your writing by pronouncing some statements such as, and for the purpose of limiting the effects of this operation, I hereby state that the sole physical desired result of this operation is the piece of carpet, and also for a psychic result, I accept a deep satisfaction from this use of this piece of carpet. We're gonna write this down, guys. I'm in love with a stripper. She said, I ain't going nowhere, girl, I'm staying. I'm in love with a stripper. I'm in a girl. I'm having a feeling. Yeah, she know what she doing. Yeah. Right now. I'm in love with a stripper. She ain't it, I'm in love with it, man. I'm not going nowhere, girl, I'm staying. I was gonna say, about 2 pages, wasn't it? Occult law number 6, law of binding. In magical operations of all kinds, there are always 2 kinds of forces involved. Actually, any kind of operation, any kind of operation, any action of any kind of physical or interplane magical involves 2 kinds of forces, or to say it another way to make it as clear as possible, any and every force in our physical cosmos is really a double acting force. Every force is dual in nature, always has been dual, and could exist in no other form than dual. There is not a thing in the physical universe that does not have 2 sides to it. Even God has 2 sides to him. However, in our physical life, we use both sides of things so naturally that we have completely lost sight of the other sides of the things we use. Do you ever stop to think that every time you cover yourself with bedclothes, you are using one side only, and that there is another side to the bedclothes? Could the sheet exist without the other side? The side you do not use, not too good in illustration, but it will do to enable you to think about it and to keep the concept as simple as possible. Here is a different illustration. Do you realize that every time you drive your automobile forward, you are exerting an equal force backward? If you would study some physics about the laws of motion, you will find this is true. So again, I say, when we use a physical plane force, we do not use only one side of the force or only one aspect of the force, but we use both sides of the force at once, as in the simple illustration of the bed sheet. In the more complex operation of the automobile, we must use both aspects of a force or we can't use it at all. In fact, a force could not exist, even on the inner planes, if it did not have 2 sides to it. Whoa. However, in the use of interplane forces to accomplish something on the physical plane, we want to use only one aspect of the force and not both aspects. And the reason for this is one aspect of a force will bring a thing to use in the other aspect of a force would take it away, or to say it in another way, a force can bring something to us and the same force can take it away. It flows naturally. Then that if we want a certain thing, then the aspect of the force we want is the aspect that will bring the thing to us. Therefore, it is imperative in all magic works and in all kinds of other words that you must recognize the existence of the other side of the force that you are invoking. Remember, wait. Therefore, it is imperative in all magic works and in all kinds of other works that you must recognize the existence of the other side of the force that you are invoking. Remember that when you contact a force, you contact both sides of it at once. And at the same time, and both sides have equal power. It is the lack of knowledge about this secret fact that causes so much trouble in the magical workings of would-be magicians. Either your magical operation works like mad, I mean literally, or it does not work at all. Therefore, when you want to use a force to accomplish a certain kind of work, you must use the side of the force that you need to accomplish the work that you want to do, be it constructive or destructive, and bind the other side of the force that you are using so it will not function in the operation you are performing. You do not bind up the one side of the force that you are using, that side that you do not want to operate. Then in any particular operation you perform, you will invoke contact both sides of the force at once and they will nicely cancel each other out. Or to enable you to understand it better, I will put it in a little different way. When you start a magical operation without a binding, you can, and often do, use the aspect of the force that you want to use. But as time goes on, the one-sided use will build up a strain or pressure, and this pressure will sooner or later bring the opposing force, now concentrated by the dilution of its balancing opposite, back into the operation with the results, harmless enough when said this way, of completely neutralizing all the previous done work and bringing back all conditions, physical and otherwise, to the same condition prevailing before the magical work started, or to say in another, make a hash out of the whole thing. A way to see this quick reversal in action is to watch the people at racetracks. A man will win a large sum of money, which was done by successfully invoking pressure on inner plane forces. Even if it was done ignorantly, the power of the will, even of an ignorant man, is very great at times. And then a few minutes later, the man will lose all that he won. The force gave, and the force took away. If you look carefully, you will see this cycle repeated time and time again in the history of nations in the world, as far back as you care to go. And that threw me off. Okay, back to what I was doing. If you will look carefully, you will see this cycle repeated time and time again in the history of nations in the world, as far back as you care to go. You can see it operating in our daily lives every day, in all our little disappointments and breakdowns in daily living. So now that you know about the occult law of binding, what you must do to make your magical operations come out right. The operation of the mental magic work you will be doing by using the art of creative visualization that's given in this book to set up a limit on the extent of each operation you perform will have the same effect as the binding of the opposite force in this case. If the work you are attempting to do does not involve too great a dislocation of your surroundings, if your server availability is ready to supply you with what you are working for, settling a sensible limit on the size of the operations you are conducting will be sufficient for all normal purposes. If you are creatively visualizing for something really big, or if you are attempting real magic work of a big kind, it would be absolutely necessary for you to bind the opposing dual force. For binding in connection with anything of an advanced nature more than mental magic, I give here. Contact me through the address given in this book, and I think I will be able to direct you to the source of information you need. I suggest that for a long time you confine yourself to the type of specialized operations that I have given you so far. I suggest that for a long time you confine yourself to the type of specialized operations that I have given you so far, going one step at a time and gaining slowly what you want. I can tell you truly that if you get too large a thing by these creative visualization methods, unless you protect yourself by a binding, you are apt to lose it all back again when the reaction takes place. Build your life by the slower, careful, well thought out methods I have given you, one step at a time, and you can expect to hold on to your gains and increase and use them in the right way. Gaining a thing through creative visualization, not too large a thing as to cause the dislocation, as aforesaid, and starting to use the thing is another form of binding. Gaining a thing through creative visualization, not too large a thing as to cause the dislocation, as aforesaid, and starting to use the thing is another form of binding. Not too large a thing as to cause the dislocation, as aforesaid, and starting to use the thing is another form of binding. Gaining a thing through creative visualization and starting to use the thing is another form of binding. That would explain soul contracts. No, sexual contracts. Having sex with someone. So this is all contracts and stuff, if you think about it. Occult law number 7. We have 8 and then we have 9. Occult law number 7, law of the barrier. Again, in this section, I am introducing a new subject law, which pertains to the art of creative visualization. I have never found this law in this exact form before. I have no good name for this law, so I had to give it a name myself. I have named this 7th law of creative visualization the occult law of the barrier. An understanding of this law will enable you to work the art of creative visualization a little more perfectly. In the use of the creative visualization methods to get what you want, much confusion exists about the use of verbal words as against symbol pictures. There appears to be 2 schools of thought about the use of verbal words as against picture symbols, and neither of the 2 schools seems to know too much about it conclusively. In the past 30 years of occult study work, I've ran across first one school of thought and then the other school. They seem to run in cycles. First, there would be schools and books dealing with words, mantras, and chants, etc. And then there would be schools dealing with mental visualization, pictures, etc. Certainly, you have all heard. This is a lot. This is downloading. And of Cure and his day by day, I am getting better and better. No, it's day by day. I am day by day in every way. I am getting better and better. Also, you must have heard of Eastern mantraisms, chants, and fairy tales. Chants. No, mantraisms. Period. Chants and fairy tales are full of words like an enchantment. Fairy tales are full of words like an enchantment. Enchanting meant state of, and invoke voice speaking. Enchanting singing, like chanting and singing, and mental state of, and invoke voice speaking. All these things pertain to words, sounds. It appears that states have to be gotten by words, and things have to be gotten by mental pictures. It probably could be said that the East is interested in states while the West is interested in things. Therefore, I presume the choice is up to you. If you want things, then follow the instructions as given in this book. And if you want states, then follow the Eastern type of instructions or work out your own system of the knowledge you have been given here. Speech in the sense that we use word sounds to convey ideas to each other is in the evolutionary existence of man. A recent invention in thinking of speech. You must never confuse human speech with the speaking of God, as, for example, where in the scriptures it says God spoke the speech of God. It is entirely different things from human vocal sounds, but this is the only kind of speech we know about. We are apt to mistake the one for the other. The creative speech of the divinity is connected with the Tattva Akasha, sound granulars, which sound granulars are vibrations, and these vibrations shape the astral light, the logos, into all things, and then change the things to material things by an entirely different process. However, as all things are connected together in more than one way, these connections are treated for another purpose. In another book of mine called The Oracle of Fortuna, I suggest you get this book and read and use the divination system therein to help you through life. The divination system therein is good, strong occult knowledge and practice. Thus, this human speech of ours, due to its recent invention, does not pertain to the depth of our being, our inner subconscious mind, but rather speech pertains to our outer conscious mind only. You should know from your occult studies that you have two minds, an inner one and an outer one. The outer one called the conscious mind and the inner one called the subconscious mind. The existence of these two minds in you is what makes all the trouble in the world, or maybe I should say the separation of these two minds makes all the trouble for you in the world. Okay. Whew. Let's try to lay down and do this. Well, lay on my back. For those of you who are ready for higher things, I will drop a big fat juicy hint as to what illumination really is. Becoming a master, becoming an adept, becoming like a god means the two minds fuse into one. Enough said. Some further information is available. Contact me through the address in the book. Illuminating to become one. I illuminate all the time. Attend to the following knowledge carefully. Words, speech are the language of the conscious mind, whereas feelings are the language of the subconscious mind. So I repeat again, all the trouble we have in the world in living this material life successfully and fully comes from the differences in communications between the two minds, the inability of these two minds to talk to each other, to get ideas and commands over to each other. Conscious you talk to conscious you talk to unconscious you. Hardly in your whole life have you been able to tell yourself what you really mean. And studying this book and learning therefrom the art of creative visualization, you are entering upon a new phase in your life. Whoa. And studying this book and learning therefrom the art of creative visualization, you are entering upon a new phase in your life, a phase in which you can learn to communicate properly to and with your subconscious mind. You can learn to give your subconscious mind positive directions and have them obeyed by it in order to get things done for you. At this point, I believe I will part with a couple of big occult secrets that you would never get except from some secret society, and then by only under big oaths of much secrecy, and you would never be able to use them for your own benefit or tell them to another person so that person can help themselves, or for heaven's sake, use these secrets for your benefit and then for the benefit of others. First big secret, your inner you is connected almost directly with the inner forces of the physical cosmos. And the second big secret, the inner forces of physical cosmos are the emotions, feelings of God. The word emotion means moving. Something moving. Movements on the inner plane are vibrations of different kinds and of different forms. These inner plane vibrations, as soon as they come in contact with your inner plane subconsciousness, become visible to you as your emotions, and the converse is almost much more importantly true to you. Your subconsciousness emotions generated by you reach out and contact these inner plane forces and influence them to your benefit. Now, with this imperfect and incomplete explanation of the basic foundation of this creative visualization art out of the way, the reason I use the words imperfect and incomplete is that modesty forbids me to claim. The reason I use the words imperfect and incomplete is that modesty forbids me to claim, as others do, that I have given you the whole truth and whole truths of being. All I have given you is enough theory, knowledge, to enable you to proceed with your work in this art. We can proceed. The art of creative visualization would be terrifically simple matter if we could just talk our desired visualizations into physical existence. But that simple thing we cannot do. You could spend a lifetime talking about what you want and still not get one word through the submind. Dang. Yeah, you did that. That bit money. That bit money. Talking words must be linked with emotional feelings in order to get work. Yeah. We cannot think or even communicate on the physical plane without the use of words, and it is by words that the outer has to communicate with the inner. However, I am glad to be able to show you that through all these contradictions between words and emotions and words, there is a path that does go right through it all. To explain this path, I have invented a name for it, a practice I abhorred when others did it. And here I am doing it again. The name I have invented is the barrier. Imagine a place inside your mental being where there exists a sort of fence. This fence or barrier separates your outer being from your inner being, separates your conscious mind from your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is outside the barrier, and your subconscious mind is inside the barrier. This is not too good a way of explaining it, but this explanation is only to describe a theory, and that only so your mind can have something to grapple with. Don't demand too much from a theory. As soon as you get used to the idea, you will not use the conception anyhow. Imagine the barrier. Imagine that the barrier works in the following manner. Words come up to the barrier, strike the barrier, sink in the barrier, and then emerge on the outer side, the inner side, as emotions. Conversely, imagine emotions coming up to the inside of the barrier, hitting the barrier, sinking into the barrier, and emerging on the outer side as words. I like that. When you can visualize work, this operation, you have made a great advance in the mastery of the occult arts. This theory of the barrier may be only an invention of my mind to help you understand these important occult operations. But you can see for yourself that something like this must be so in order to seal off your inner being from your outer being. If this barrier does not exist, the least little word would raise a perfect hell of emotions. Dang, that explains people that cannot control how they feel. They don't have no barrier. There is no barrier. It's crazy. If this barrier did not exist, the least little word would raise a perfect hell of emotions that could not be controlled. And see, I just said it. That's how people can't control themselves. And then boom, that cannot be controlled. And if the barrier did not exist, the least little emotion would raise a storm of words that would be meaningless to you and all others. The barrier slows down both of these transfer actions and allows proper living to proceed in a halfway orderly manner. Understanding of the above instructions in the barrier process enables you to deliberately control the barrier actions going and coming, or as might be said, control the traffic both ways. You can now consciously link your words with emotions and your emotions with words. Whew. Occult law number 8, law of the treasure chart. How many? Just to be sure. Law of the treasure chart. I wrote it down. We did binding limitation, and we got treasure chart. And then we got emotion. I put the E in motion. Went to fresh day and clean it in a polar bear. Cut the blinker on. I'm about to turn left. Occult law number 8, law of the treasure chart. Occult law number 8, law of the treasure chart. Let me know if y'all are messing with this, man. If y'all still here by now. Whew, that's gonna be a huge download. The occult law we will study here is called the occult law of the treasure chart. We will now consider another tool which can be used by you in your creative visualization work. This treasure chart tool is a rather well-known device, being an application of certain very old magical principles. I have reason to believe that the pictures and decorations on Egyptian tombs were early treasure charts. As soon as a royal child was born into Egypt, a tomb was immediately started for him. On the walls of the tombs were painted pictures of his life to his death, and this while he was still an infant. These pictures show the child as having all the good things in life right up to his death, and even beyond that. The pictures show him winning all the wars and capturing large numbers of prisoners. In other words, setting up a fine life for him in advance. These pictures were painted on the walls of the tomb and made alive and powerful by the magic of the priests. In all cases, unless the priests withdrew their magic protection, these pictures preserved him throughout his whole life, and he lived this protected path his whole physical life. Still earlier in the history of man, pictures of game were drawn on the inside walls of caves. These pictures showed a hunting, killing food game successfully and bringing it back for food. It can be said that treasure charts or maps are oldest of men's magical devices to help him through life. At the present time, I find that Unity people are using this magic tool in their work. It seems a little strange to find the Unity people using this magic device in their work, as none of their other teachings have any connection with magic that I can find, being mostly metaphysical, mental teachings. But be that as it may, we can be thankful that the magical tool still exists and that its use is open to us all. I just called the Unity office in the city, and the lady there tells me that the treasure charts are still used in their work. Only she called them treasure maps. If you feel so inclined to get some of their magazines and see what additional things they have to say about the technique of this magical tool, perhaps you will find additional data that I do not give, which will help you in your work of getting the best out of a treasure chart for your benefit. If it works for you people, it works for you as you will be using additional. If it works for the Unity people, it should work for you, as you will be using additional magical techniques that they do not use. You will recall that in the early part of this book, I told you about the lady in La Johala a long time ago who had taught a class of people this treasure chart system, and how one of her students had made up a chart for a blonde and another student made up a chart for a bottle of whiskey, and how both of them got what they wanted, and it scared the wits out of them. These students were far more sensible in their askings than many occult students who asked for the moon with the fence around it the first time they used a creative visualization technique. The technique of preparing and using a treasure chart is basically rather simple. The first thing to do is to get a large sheet of paper or cardboard or some other large surface on which you can fasten things, say 15x15 or larger. The surface of your chart should be kept in as private as a place as possible. The chart should not be in a location where others can view your chart freely, and you should show it yourself to others very sparingly, if at all, and then only to those who are in complete sympathy with your aims in life. A man and wife team might make a chart together for their mutual benefit, but that is about the only exception to this secret rule. So for your chart, let it be very private and hidden. After you have selected your chart surface and mounted it somewhere away from prying eyes, the first thing to do is to place a boundary line along the edges of the chart. Why? The answer is to invoke the law of limitation, of course. I think at this point I will add some more material. As occult students, you should have some knowledge about planes. The inner planes are treated somewhat more fully in my book, The Art of Practice of Astral Projection. In that book, you were shown how to enter the inner planes and thus become familiar with them firsthand. But until you are familiar yourself with the inner planes, you will have to take my word for it now. I respectfully suggest that if you do not have the book, The Art and Practice of Astral Projection, you get a copy and study it thoroughly. There is also much ordinary occult knowledge material in there which you will use in your occult work and occult studies for the rest of your life. All my books are written for one purpose only, and that purpose is to help you help yourself. I have said this before, and I may say it again, and I repeat this because I mean it. So placing a broader boundary line on your chart surface not only places a physical boundary line mark on your physical chart's border surface, but also so placing a broader boundary line on your chart surface not only places a physical boundary line mark on your physical chart's border surface, but also places an actual boundary line on the actual plane counterpart on the inner place, way up to the top of creation. Now, do you see why you should place a boundary limitation on your work? For example, I am told that the designs of a rug are duplicated on the astral plane, and it seems logical that they would if the idea of counterparts is true. In Orient, in Oriental, in Oriental countries, where these things are automatically known or since when a rug is designed, a woven breaks are left in the pattern of the rug for any elementals who happen to get into the astral pattern to escape from the design of elementals. To escape from the design of the rug. That is all I know about it. Why the elementals cannot get out of the design sideways is beyond my ken. I have heard that they can move only in a straight line. Doesn't make much sense in the absence of positive knowledge. Maybe they are dumb, as I have also heard. Maybe they are dumb, as I have also heard. Anyhow, placing a boundary line on your chart will limit the boundary of your operations. By placing a boundary on the counterparts of the pictures that you put on the chart to express your desires. Remember, your desired pictures are attached to the real physical object/things on the inner planes, and this attachment is the basic why reason your chart will work and can be used to bring you to the things you desire. After the foregoing preparations are finished, you can then start your search for desired representing pictures material to place on the chart. Oh yeah, because I'm basically using the physical element of Earth to break it down to the manifestation from the fourth dimension. That makes sense. After foregoing preparations are finished, you can then start your search for desired representing pictures material to place on the chart. What you are to look for and look everywhere for are pictures that embody your desires. Where do you find these pictures? Naturally, in our modern civilization, you will find these pictures in magazines, sample pamphlets, brochures, illustrated books, and other similar things. It is fortunate for our search that every well sought after desired thing in this life is represented by some kind of magazine of the trade. For example, if the thing that you desire is some kind of some special kind of thing, then find the trade magazine for the thing you desire. Let us say, for example, that you are interested in horses, in which case you would secure the trade magazines for the horse owners, and in those magazines you would find pictures of horses, which pictures would embody your desire. What I want to emphasize here now is that it is the search and research that you do to find your basic desire objects, pictures, that assists greatly in influencing your subconscious mind to start the inner plane currents forces to working to bring about your desires. So when you find a picture or illustration that gives you a thrill, arouse desire in you, then clip it out and fasten it into your chart. I found that the best way to fasten these cut out pictures to the chart was with a small piece of Scottish tape. Use your own personality, imagination, desires, ideas, emotions, and especially and everything basically you in making up your chart. Here are a few basic directions you can use on your chart as follows. If you feel like following any of these ideas, you can do so, but if you don't feel like it, then do as you please. You can place at the top of the chart. You can place at the top of the chart a picture of something inspirational. Place at the bottom of the chart a picture of something that expresses thanks. You might in general say that big things should go to the top of the chart and smaller things at the bottom of the chart. You might consider the bottom of the chart as nearest the present time and the top of the chart as furthest away from the time near time. You might consider the left side of the chart as where things might come from and the right side is the things already arrived or near arrival. Now again, I want to say if you don't like any of these ideas, then follow your own ideas as what you might be right for you in a special way. Therefore, select pictures of the things you desire and place them on the chart accordingly. But do remember the spirit of availability, and also keep in the background of your mind the outer creative visualization laws that you have learned about. Now, in the case of the treasure chart, it won't hurt to put on the chart somewhere pictures of fine things, pictures of Cadillacs, Rolls Royces, jewels, fine homes, and estates, so that you can have something to look at and admire and arouse your emotional desire for better things and to develop your taste for better things and to get in the habit of thinking of the best things only at all times. Thinking of the best things in the world is not going to hurt you as long as you can see things in the correct perspective. Call this section your dream section or dream boat or anything like that as long as you do understand what it is. Remember that all the finest things in the world can come to you, but they have to come through the laws of the physical plane, usually in exchange for money, which money comes to you in some way. One thing is certain. These things have to come to you through an increased sphere of availability, but you have to give this increased sphere of availability a chance to grow, time to build up. I found that everybody sets up his chart differently, so this is the reason I am giving you so much leeway to follow your own personality pattern. In these instructions, the main idea is to search out and hunt for pictures of the objects of your desire. It is the hunting out and the searching out of these embodied desires that steer your inner being to activity first, and then it is the constant reviewing of these pictures afterwards that reinforces and steps up inner plane activities to bring you the things you desire. View the chart every day. In a few weeks' time, you should be able to recall the images to memory very easily. Once you recall these pictures, you should be able to manipulate them about to suit yourself. Referring again to my book, The Art and Practice of Astral Projection, the last section of this book is called The Symbol Method of Projection. After you have studied this section, I call your attention to the fact that you can use the same projection method to project yourself into these pictures on a treasure chart. You will find this a curious and rewarding experience. This type of projection can be of great assistance to you in stirring your inner being into greater activity and getting what you want. Ophir has plans to write another book as soon as he can, dealing with the subject of projecting your consciousness to these pictures more fully and in greater detail, but more particularly projecting it into those kinds of other pictures called talisman. However, talisman are more powerful instruments than those picture symbols you are to use in the treasure chart, and these talisman projections have to be treated differently. Ophir suggests that you look for this book and get it when it comes out, but in the meanwhile, get Ophir other books and study it and use it. The book is The Art and Practice of Astral Projection, which contains much occult dynamite. Ophir's only object in writing books is to help you and to give you the means of developing your hidden powers for your benefit first, and then when you are all set, to help others. Don't worry about Ophir making too much money from the sale of these books for two reasons. One, every cent Ophir gets from the books goes back into the work. And two, all the money he could get from the sale of these books would never pay Ophir for what he has lost and the time he spent in getting ready to be able to write these books. So go to it. Occult law number 9. Law of emotion. Winter fresh, staying cleaner than a polar bear. Cut that blinker on. I'm about to turn up. These niggas see sit. The way got too much emotion. That goes back to my song Osama K. Emotion. But hey man, we finna take a break real quick. I gotta use the bathroom. With that being said, man, I'll be back. Alright, what's good, y'all? We back outside with it. Took my little break. We're gonna finish this book up, man. We got 40 pages, so we got 25 pages left about occult law number 9, law of emotion. The word emotion comes from the same root as the word moving, and emotion is alive. The truth is that there seems to be evidence that emotion is actually a part of your being, the real you. We can't go too far into psychology here, and I never did fully understand the psychological connection myself, but it does appear that a strong emotion is really a deeply connected part of your ego in some way. For example, if you should have a strong emotion that is repellent to you for some reason, and you reject it, split it off from your personality, you have a real For example, if you have a strong emotion that is repellent to you for some reason and you reject it, split it off from your personality, you have a real demon in the background of your mind that is raising Cain with you to get back into with you. Years ago, when I was studying the first occult, there was much guild talk, I guess gossip, in occult circles about a thing called the dweller on the threshold. No one knew what it was exactly, but all spoke of it with bated breath and with great fear. I was never able to find out exactly what it is. As time passed, I forgot about it and heard no more about it until I started practicing occult works. When I had completed the preliminary work that led up to the writings of the book, The Art and Practice of Astral Projection, I had by that time settled many of the conflicts. That is, I had welcomed back into me most of the things that I had formerly rejected, and therefore when I started to project by the different systems, I encountered no dweller on my threshold. Oh, there were a few things as described in the book. Those noises and various images came to me, but I recognized them for dream projected images, and as soon as I started to work with them, they disappeared, which was when I took them back into me. Although I will admit that I did not recognize them at the time as projections of me, which I had formerly rejected, and I am just now connecting these different things up so I understand them and their relation to occult work. I cannot give a course in psychology as I am not qualified to do that, nor could I do it long distance in this little book. But in considering this occult law of emotions, I am getting close to this threshold business. This threshold business is where the emotions come in. Of course, in referring to creative visualization work, I'm referring to the new emotions and not to old ones, such as your projected rejected projections would be. I am concerned here, at least the old emotions should interfere with the new emotions. Now, for heaven's sake, don't be suggestible and yield to any suggestions from what I have said so far, and be afraid of this work. We probably all have these rejected projections to some degree in our lives. Will you do this? If you feel any deep-seated emotional upheaval when you start to do this work, or encounter an upheaval later on, you'll feel that you cannot handle, and then you had better stop occult work. Wait a minute. We probably all have these rejected projections to some degree in our lives. Will you do this? If you feel any deep-seated emotional upheaval when you start to do this work, or encounter an upheaval later on, you feel that you cannot handle, that you had better stop occult work and go to a psychologist and ask for assistance, as you might have serious repressions that you are contacting. This does not happen very often, and in fact, I cannot think of a single case that I know of personally, but since there are so many screwballs in the world always hollering about the dangers of the occult, I would rather warn you this way than say nothing. The whole idea of doing occult work is to clear up or resolve your rejected parts of your personality and get them back into yourself, and then go ahead to greater things. As I said before, I don't understand the rejection idea, and neither does anyone else, but the main idea is to get cleared up, and no matter how many different ways they say it, that is it. Conversely, if you feel only a mild upheaval, then proceed to try and handle it yourself and go on with your work so to proceed. One method of using emotions often advocated by former creative visualization teachers of the natural type was to instruct the student to feel without telling him how to feel, that he already had the thing desired and he was using it, and he would get it in due time. I don't think I also set the timer back on. Nope. Alright. Back to the audio book. Well, not audio book, but PDF file. The whole idea of this code is to clear up or resolve your rejected parts of your personality, get them back to yourself, then go ahead to greater things. That he already had the thing desired and was using it, and he would get it in due time. This idea seems to have originally been based upon one of the few genuine portions of the New Testament. The purported Jesus is supposed to have said, "Whatever the things you want, believe that you have them already, and you will have them. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe you have received them, and ye shall have them." Mark 11:23. Of course, the above directions are greatly simplified and are directed to those who are able to work the creative visualization laws naturally. You now know from your studying of this book, that there are many other laws to be taken into consideration to make creative visualization work than the use of just one single law. However, these other factor laws you now already know, and knowing them, you can use them all together properly and get the best reinforced use out of all of them. How then do you go about using the emotion technique law fully? This part properly belongs in the section of practices, but I will include some of it here now and give some more later on in the section of practices. We can go back to the case of the young Paris rag picker, as his stories is the most simple to illustrate the principle, which is the same in all cases. You remember what the young man first worked for was a small piece of carpet to put on the floor beside his bed to protect his bare feet from the cold stone floor when he got up in the morning. He knew what the cold stone floor felt like, so he did not have to imagine the feel of that. Therefore, from the standpoint of the occult law of emotion as applied to the rag picker, having allowed for all the other laws, the use of the law of emotion would consist in the simple case of the young man's feeling his feet already protected by the rug under his feet, and allowing that feeling to generate the feeling, emotion of pleasure and satisfaction. I will repeat. Go back. In this simple case of the young man's feeling his feet already protected by the rug under his feet, and allowing that feeling to generate the feeling. Generate the feeling, emotion of pleasure and satisfaction. I will repeat, the feeling of pleasure of the desire fulfilled is to generate the emotion of happiness and satisfaction. There is more to this emotion work, however. Let us consider emotion in terms of another kind of emotion we are all familiar with. Let us consider the emotion called desire. A would-be occult teacher once told me this word desire meant D of sire, father. So the word meant of the father. This is not true. Etymologically speaking, as a glance at the dictionary will show, but the idea is not a bad one to consider. It has been argued that all desires are basic, come from a basic cause, which can be equated with a central divinity idea To extend this idea further, the basic divinity desires all good for all, and it implants the desire in all beings to cause them to reach out for this good thing the divinity has already created for all to use and to have. Certainly without desire we would all do nothing. I trust you. See then that the desire is an emotion greatly to be desired, to be cultivated and developed and practiced. Naturally, the best and proper practice of desire is to link it to something you want. You have ideas all the time as to things you want, circumstances to be brought about, and this is what you have been studying in this book. Use your treasure chart to limit. Load it with pictures of things you desire and feast your eyes on them. Everything helps. The sky is the limit. Go to it. Occult law number 10, the law of reversal of the planes. This is the last law, and then finishing up the book basically. This law of reversal is some importance, enough that you should know about it, but in actual practice, use it would do little more than perplex you as you note the effects of reversal. As you go through the planes, if you are viewing them clairvoyantly, you might have flashes of this while you are following the other directions as given in this book. In case you do have a clairvoyant flash and notice something like a name or a signpost on something, you will notice that the words are reversed as in a mirror. This is about the only time you will notice the reversal, as the scene is not always so clear. A reverse street, for example, looks very much like an ordinary street, and it takes some examination to notice the reversal of it, which close examination you do not usually give a dream scene. Then again, in this clairvoyant flash, you will probably be passing through a plane. And by the time, no time over there, you stop to see why the sign is reversed, you will be through that plane, and in the next plane, the words will be right again. Now, the reason for this is, in relation to our plane, the next inner plane is reversed to this one. The next inner plane is reversed to that one, and so down to the end of the planes as far as the physical cosmos is concerned. Or to say it in a more simple way, each inner plane is inside out to each other. What is coming here is going there. Here is a simple illustration, rather too simple in a way, but try to understand it thoroughly. Let us, for example, say that our physical plane, we plan to go for a picnic. As you well know, we will start at the beginning here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. We plan the picnic. We buy the food for the picnic. We cook the food. We then prepare it in other ways. We pack the food in baskets. We travel to the picnic grounds. We carry on there all day and then come back home. Now, if there were such things as picnics on the etheric plane, the plane next to this plane to go on a picnic would come home first, spend the day at the picnic grounds, pack the food in the baskets, prepare the food in other ways. We would cook the food. We would buy the food for the picnic. We would plan the picnic, etc. You see, I can hardly make sense in writing this down, and yet that is the way the plane next to this plane functions. Ooh, okay. Excuse me. Anyway, in the section previous to this one, I told you that in one of the few genuine portions of the New Testament, Jesus is supposed to have said, whatever things you want, believe that you have them already and you will have them. Now, in view of this reversal process, can you see why you start out getting something by feeling that you already have it, by doing your creative visualization work? This way you are working with the laws of the inner planes and not against them. It can be argued that thinking belongs to this lower physical plane and feeling emotions belong to the next plane. Whatever you are going to name the planes, so now I trust you see how you use thinking and feeling together to get what you want. We have now come to the end of the sections devoted to the study of the laws, art of creative visualization. We now come to the last section of the book. In the first part of this book, I dealt with the subject of creative visualization. Then I introduced 10 different division factors, which I said were occult laws and practices that were directly connected with the art of creative visualization. I first outlined these laws and practices and then described them later in greater detail. Although I had said that I would give the practices of these laws in the later part of the book, I did some practices in the first part. In order to go further in the use practices illustration of these laws, I am going to have to repeat many slash some of these things, some of the things I partly covered before. My friends have accused me of repeating myself, and I know that I did repeat myself in my last book. I was sort of expecting the book reviewers to say something about it, but they didn't. Thanks heavens. I can and will say, as I said before, that the occult is a very different subject. The occult is a very different subject. It's a very difficult subject, and not foolproof, easy to teach under any circumstances. More especially when the student is working alone, as you are. When working from a book like this, I am not writing glorious literature that will go down in history as perfect prose examples for all to read and copy. No, I am writing down very difficult material of a very difficult subject, and I feel that I must put down occult knowledge and occult practices as exactly as it is possible to do, and in as clear language as it is possible to do. And when I think that the presentation of some obtuse subject point is not too clear the first time I wrote it down, I repeat the material in other form or another way or in the same way until I feel fairly certain that the material is understood and or could be understood by repetitive reading on the part of the student, which is what I expect him to do, and to do as many times as is necessary to master it. At least he should do it if he wants to understand and use the occult art in an effective manner for the development of his true inner powers to help himself through this hard physical life and make this physical life easier for him. The material that I am presenting in this book has never been given out before in this way to my knowledge. When the outlines of this material were shown to some occult publishers, I was urged to write 3 or 4 books and divided up the material among those books and not give out so much new and valuable material and techniques in one book. However, I have much more occult material on hand than I will ever be able to use in my lifetime. And so you get all of it in this one book, as you always will. I will hold nothing back. I will now go over some of the 10 laws again and give additional material and practices. The occult law of physical visualization. Ooh. Wow. The occult law of physical visualization. For those who are not gifted. Alright, man, I had to come back inside. I kept getting interrupted. The occult law of physical visualization. For those who are not gifted with natural visualization powers, and I certainly was not, the presentation of this law and its practices is a godsend. Certainly, the ability to mentally visualize is absolutely necessary for creative visualization, and yet not one teacher that I know of has treated this matter with the importance it deserves, let alone give any directions as to how to develop the visualization ability. I had to work this whole visualization matter out myself from the ground up. I found that there were several ways that your mental image making capability could be increased. I have developed several different methods of doing this. The second law I call the occult law technique of physical visualization. 1 and 2 laws are very closely related, but I decided to divide them into 2 laws because the whole matter of visualization had never been treated. Physical visualization, and then the whole matter of visualization had never been treated before. And the importance of clear mental pictures never emphasized in this way before. For your first work and practice of mental visualizations, you were giving a ritual to learn and practice both mentally and physically. This ritual is very old and very potent when it is done right by a student. I hope you did not neglect your work on that ritual. I gave this to you in the first part of the book, so you would have something to be doing while you were studying the rest of the book. If you follow my directions and did the ritual, you should have developed some marked visualizations ability by now. Yeah, that's true. You should be able to work the whole ritual while seated. That is, you should be able to run over the whole ritual in your mind's imagination eye, making all the motions and making all the movements back and forth in your imagination. If you haven't done it, then don't get discouraged, but start to do it when you feel like it. Now I am going to give you some more visualization word practices. On the inside covers of this book, you will find an outline for symbols Elsewhere in this book, you will find these same four symbols in color. You can cut out these color symbols and paste them to cardboard for your first work with these symbols. If you get this book secondhand and the color symbols are gone, you will find directions with the outline symbols as to how to make them with the compass and ruler and ink pen. To keep up your work with these symbols, you should make them yourself, first on paper, then later on parchment. Keep them very private, keep them protected so that other people will not see them or have a chance to handle them. It should come about as you continue to use your own private symbols that the symbols should increase in powers, becoming successfully charged with your magnetism and the magnetism of the forces you invoke. For now, you can use the color symbols given in the book as visualization objects to develop your visualization ability only and not for the other purposes, the more advanced work. Some additional uses were given for these symbols in my book, Art and Practice of Actual Projection, and I refer you to that book for work of an advanced nature. As I'm reading, I'm feeling the energy of like my family, like how at 17 I kind of was getting into this stuff, but it wasn't always easy. Like going through the obstacles and the beliefs, and it wasn't always easy, man. The use of the symbols for visualization practice development work is as follows. In starting the work each time, I urge you to work the ritual first, probably physically, as you are going to do the other work mentally, and the physical ritual will serve as a good balance exercise. If you have time to do the ritual, do it. If you do not have time to do it, if you do not have time, do not do it. But do not feel guilty if you don't do it all the time. Start your work by making yourself comfortable. Use a table and chair of convenient size. You can have some soft music playing, but it should be definitely soft and soothing and soft. Place the yellow square blue border card, the card of the element of earth, before you with a good light falling on the card from behind it, if possible. Look at the card quietly. Do not strain or force your eyes in any way, shape, or form. The first day, look at the card for about 3 minutes and then gradually increase the time to 5 minutes, but only one time a day. If you feel any strain, skip a day or two. When the 2-time interval is over, close your eyes and you will see, when you're in a vision, a duplicate image of the symbol in complementary colors. Watch this image quietly and make no mental effort to interfere with it. It will grow strong and then fade away, then reappear again, each time weaker. Watch it until it is gone. Do not force any action against the image, just watch the image fade away. Repeat this work with all the symbols, each in turn for a week, each. But do not put any pressure on yourself. After you have done this work for some weeks, then try to bring the image back into your memory, your mind's eye. I am sure you will be pleased to discover that in about 2 or 3 weeks of your work, you will be able to bring the images back into your imagination vision easily and in color. When you reach this result, you will know that you can visualize properly. If you go about it right, all that you have to do is look at it. All you have to do is to look at what you want to visualize long enough to get it fixed in your memory. That is not what really happens. You do something quite different than merely learn to recall or visualize by just looking long enough. The looking affects the inner plane forces, but for now, all you have to know is how to do it. The occult reasons for this belong to advanced work. You can now practice looking at pictures or the real things of the things that you want using the same technique as given above. You have been told about treasure charts, and it is in the use of these charts that you can practice your visualization work extensively and profitably. Nothing is truer than the old saying, practice makes perfect, at least here. Now let us consider the presentation of the concept called the sphere of availability. This concept opened up an entirely new dimension of creative visualization work. Heretofore, the raw assumption of creative visualization was that anything would work if you visualized for it or thought about it long enough and hard enough. And this is true, but with different people, the creative process worked differently. Sometimes it worked one way and sometimes another, but it seemed to work for different people in different ways at different times. Sometimes it seemed not to work at all. Other times, with some people, there would be long delays. For other people, short time intervals was the rule. Any of us who have tried these methods know what I'm talking about. And yet, for some kind of explanation for the erratic behavior of the visualization law, there was no one to turn to. The New Thought teachers who used this law considered it blasphemy to question in any way any of the New Thought methods, which attitude made it very hard to get a reasonable analysis of creative visualization and its limitations, or even to work out some kind of an operating technique to explain why, when it did not work, the facts seemed to be that many students found the creative visualization methods did not work for them, no matter what they did. Woo. After I discovered this sphere of availability concept, I was able to resolve many of the former difficulties that students had with creative visualization methods. The simple non-occult answer is that all people are different, and obviously what works for one does not always work for another. People are not mass produced so that one part of a person fits into another person exactly all the time. And this is more than true of the lives and experiences that make up people's lives. In spite of all platitudes to the contrary, notwithstanding, all men are not created equal. Every man's life and resources are different from all other lives and resources. So this means that each student approach to securing good results by means of creative visualization has to be different. We might get much better results with creative visualization methods if we were all as destitute as the Paris rat picker. The Paris rat picker was so destitute that he knew exactly what he wanted because he needed a thing like a small piece of carpet, and starting from the exact need, he was able to build up step by step a sphere of availability that in the end was able to supply him with a tremendous amount of material things. I hope you will read the above over until you understand it completely. Now we come to you and I and our work with creative visualization. As we are not the same as the Paris rat picker in the manner of our resources, our problem is much greater than his was. He knew exactly where he stood, and we do not know exactly where we stand. Most all of us have something. I said before that most of us were middle class, although there is a large argument as to what that means. I mean that we are neither rich nor poor, but all the way from fair off to affluent. If you are normal, then you want to better yourself. That is, better your material conditions. To many of us, having only a little is almost as bad as having nothing. Your problem then is difficult, but is not insurmountable. Using the information already given, you can restate your present problem in this way. Your problem then is difficult, but not insurmountable. Using the information already given, you can restate your present problem in this way. Your present sphere of availability is static. You wish to increase your sphere of availability so that it will grow to supply you with the things that you know that you now think are necessary for your happiness and physical well-being. So the problem, now restated, becomes this: you are to find the exact point in and from which you are to construct, organize your work on your present sphere of availability, and this point is just short of this side of your first desired built-up objective. And in order to do this, then you must find out exactly how your present sphere of availability stands. You must size up your present sphere of availability in a hard-headed manner and not fool yourself by wishful thinking in any way. You're going to have to start with your present sphere of availability and build it up to the point where it will supply you with the things you want. Before you can start this work, then there are two things that you have to know and do. The first thing is we have to know exactly what it is you want to do with your life in the future, what you want to happen to you, for the rest of your life, at least in a general way, if not in an exact way. Try writing it all down as best as you can. Now that you have gotten this written down, and as you look at it, you are to understand that what you want has to come to you through your sphere of availability. So now you take a long, hard look at your present sphere of availability. Your work now becomes so personal that I cannot advise you anymore about it. I have to leave it up to you in your examination to show you where you stand. If you need advice, you can contact me through the address given in this book, and I will attempt to assist you in any way that I can. But first, try and make some kind of an appraisal yourself. Man, for y'all, man. I think I'm gonna be 3 hours in now, because considering the fact that I had ended the first one on accident. I can give you a few examples as an illustration. Let us say that your appraisals have convinced you that for the immediate time being, your job is your sphere of availability, obviously to supply you with the things you have outlined as your desired objects in life. Your sphere of availability has to be increased. Make a close examination of your job. I know this is a tirade saying, but are you really putting out a good job? Are you doing the very best you can on your job? As long as you have, for the purposes of this example, decide that your job is your present sphere of availability, then improvement of this source supply is the start of your enlargement of your source of supply. As I said, your work with your life and your resources now become so personal that I cannot treat it further here. Contact me if you need me, and I will help to the best of my ability to do so. Let us now consider the fifth law, the occult law of limitation. Some of the practices connected with many of these occult laws are little more than good use of our common sense, coupled with some understanding of the nature of the inner planes. The main idea we all seem to get about the inner planes is that they are free of the limitations of this physical plane. And that is true, but that freedom pertains only to the inner planes, and as soon as these forces are grounded onto this plane, they then become subject to this plane laws, and that is what we want. Some ideas about the actions of the forces of the inner planes can be gained from the following words of an occult writer of the turn of the century. I have in my possession a book written by author Edward White, printed in London in 1898. In the opening chapter of his book, Mr. White makes the following statement about the inner planes, but in a rather jocular mood. Do not take this too seriously. There, in the inner planes, all paradises seem to obtain actually. Contradictions logically exist. The effect is greater than the cause, and the shadow more than the substance. Therein the visible melts into the unseen. The invisible is manifested openly. Motion from place to place is accomplished without traversing the intervening distance. Matter passes through matter. There are two straight lines may enclose space. Space has a fourth dimension and further possibilities beyond it. Without metaphor and without evasion, the circle is mathematically squared. Their life is prolonged, youth renewed, physical immorality secured. Their earth becomes gold and gold earth. Their words and wishes possess creative power. Thoughts are things. Desire realizes its object. There. The hierarchies of extra mundane intelligence are within easy communication. There the law of continuity is suspended by the interference of the higher law of fantasia. As I said, Mr. White was speaking rather jokingly, but the above statements do give some idea of the differences that are considered to be so between the inner planes and this one. For the purposes of your work and creative visualization, the main idea for you to remember is that the inner planes forces are not subject to any kind of lower physical plane form of confinement until they are grounded in some way. Once grounded in and on the physical plane, they are then confined and cribbed so you can handle them. In the mental magic type of work you will be doing, you can easily gather the inner plane forces, but they fly off in all directions at once just as easily. However, there is a way you can hold them. For the purpose of the simple work you are doing, it will be sufficient if you conduct these four forces into a form, and the form will be your visualized picture object form. Or if you will make a declaration before starting your creative visualization work, it will usually be sufficient to bind the forces to the extent of the particular operation you are performing. Try to get into the habit of writing down beforehand what you want to accomplish and put a definite end to each separate section of the work you are doing. Do not run all your creative visualization work together with no end in sight. Split up your desires, work in sections, and work to each section done at a time, completing each section and closing off that section. These procedures will act very effectively as binders of the inner plane forces that you capture for your work. Keep in mind the stories I told you about misusers who got money started towards them and then could not spend the money for anything when they got it, not even for food, and ended up starving to death. This is more or less common when a person has creatively visualized for money, but instead for the things or circumstances. Try to do your visualization work for things and circumstances, and not just money, as it could happen that you could get money and then not be able to use it for the things you wanted, as even ordinary events can keep you from using the money for what you wanted it for. I had a peculiar experience along these lines just recently. I am writing this material on an IBM executive typewriter. Ever since I was aware of this typewriter, I wanted to own one. I did not do any real visualizing work to get one because my sphere of availability was just about able to supply one. That is one not from the company, but one not new. So the work I did was to find the best secondhand typewriter that I could for the best price. I worked myself into quite a pitch doing this, and it became a sort of enjoyable game, which is another thing you want to incorporate into your work. Make it fun. I ran across one at a place in Hollywood and I almost bought it, but I didn't quite like it. The price was just over the price I felt I could pay for it. Then I discovered that the woman was not the owner of the machine, but was selling it for a store for some reason, and I suppose the reason was that as a private party, there would be no question of state sales tax, which they would save. That is, I suppose, this was the reason the woman, amusingly enough, used some new thought statements like, "You were led here. It must have been for you, etc." Ah. Ooh, man, what y'all think, man? This is a lot of reading. I feel like I'm entering the creative mode now. I'll drink some water, man. Excuse me. After some thought about the matter, I decided to let it go. However, on my next trip to Los Angeles, I did find a splendid typewriter with an extra long carriage, which is what I really wanted, and at a price very close to what I had decided I could afford to pay and would pay. Now, however, I still find myself looking at the papers and looking at prices for typewriters and such things, and I still have a feeling of buying a typewriter when I have two now. In my case, the feeling is not too strong, but it is there, and if it ran away with me, could make trouble. I could end up by going on buying typewriters without needing them. I might even buy some more typewriters at a very good price and resell them at a profit, which is an acceptable course to follow. So watch out for the continuation of your desired feelings after the desire has been filled. Excuse me. Turn it to something else as quick as you can. Let us consider the occult law of binding our whole physical cosmos is governed by polarity and much more than we realize. In fact, being able to realize the polarity of the physical cosmos and being able to recognize it as an art of illumination, for heaven's sake. Look about you from now on and take the dual nature of the universe into account. For heaven's sake, remember that what goes on must come down. What goes up must come down. It takes a well-developed man to recognize polarity, and a still more well-developed man to take advantage of it. Each such a mundane thing as the stock market shows this effect very clearly. When the stock market goes up, the less developed man is affected by that effect and is drawn into the raising market, and when the market goes down, he is deeply discouraged by the effect and gets out. The people follow effects and do not note the causes. I cannot remember the name of the very rich man who said frankly that the reason he was so wealthy was that he bought when everybody was selling and sold when everybody was buying. Of course, no one believed him and went on just as they were doing. The point of all this is that all forces that influence the physical plane are dual. They have two sides to them. Every force that you contact to do work for you has this double-sidedness to it, and when you contact the force, you contact both sides at once. Now, although you may get the force to work for you for some time the way you want it to work, the time will come sooner or later when the opposite side of the force will take over, and you will, by its reversal, lose all you have gained in that when you least expect it. Having a job, for example. That's why I gotta, pay attention to the opposite force. Like, yeah, I'm having stability and all that, but now I have to take the money and invest. I gotta take the money and I gotta invest it. I got to. Starting now. As soon as I get my first check. I am not gonna play no games. Not gonna play no games with them, Polly. Now, how may you protect yourself from this reversal effect due to the dual nature of all forces? In your creative visualization work, it would probably be sufficient if, keeping the dual nature of all forces in mind, you add, when you write down your limitation statement, a further statement something like this: I also desire that the object of this particular creative visualization work have been attained, that no reversal take place, but that the opposing force of the force that I am invoking be bound, and that I possesses the object gain as long as I can use it profitably and successfully. It might be well to also make the statement to the effect that I am to possess the object gain until it can be replaced with a better object, etc. Most any statement like that will act as a binding. Almost any statement like the above will be alright to use as long as you use it with common sense and mean it. It is not the possible powerlessness of any binding action that you might take that makes the trouble, but it is the ignorance of the existence of the reaction of dual forces, or that all forces are dual, that makes the trouble. One of the most outstanding cases I ever heard of concerning ignorance of this dual nature of forces is the case of Mrs. Eddy, the discoverer and founder of the Christian Science Church, to whom every believer in metaphysics must be grateful to for her pioneer work along these lines. It has been said that during the later years of Mrs. Eddy's life, she suffered from strange attacks at night times, during which she suffered acutely and with great distress. No one has ever diagnosed these attacks correctly. Mrs. Eddy referred to them as malicious animal magnetism. I feel rather certain that these strange attacks were dual to the other side of the forces she invoked and taught others to invoke without binding the other side of the force. Everything points to that being true. The malicious animal magnetism could have been the unbound side of the force called divine love, which she invoked so much. I mean no disrespect to Mrs. Eddy, and I do not want to start any argument about this. I regard Mrs. Eddy with great respect, and I give her full credit for the great work she accomplished. The occult law of the barrier, words, and emotions are the twin tools that you use in the creative visualization work. You should be well equipped in words and well equipped in emotions for creative visualization work. However, if you have only a few words at your command, that is still all right, as long as those few words are connected with strong emotions. It is the strong emotions that do the inner plane work, and not so much the words. A strong emotion of desire, it's very necessary for this work. Many people are afraid to allow themselves to feel strong emotions of desire, and yet it is desire that is the driving force of our lives. Without desire, we are nothing. Many people, when they lose their desire to live, actually lie down and die without more idle about it. In the use of the next law, use desire for all of its worth. If you feel your emotional desires, you should be whipped up a bit, then as long as you recognize it for what it is, do a little daydreaming in connection with your treasure chart. Find pictures of what give you a thrill and play on and intensify that thrill. The occult law of the treasure chart. Oh, that was a lot. Oh my god. Downloading. Downloading, man. I'm downloading, man. I'm about to lay down and download all this information. The occult law of the treasure chart. One pretty good occult teacher I know of teaches that you should construct dreams. You should construct dramas of events that you want to retake. Yo!
Isaiah,
Hold on.
you there?
Yeah, hold on. Alright, y'all, we back. The occult law of the treasure chart. One pretty good occult teacher. What time is it? Oh, 8:20. One pretty good occult teacher I know of teaches that you should construct dreams of events that you want to take place. You can use this device very well in connection with the pictures that you put on your treasure chart. Arrange the pictures so that they tell some kind of story. Use your ingenuity to construct a sequence of pictures, stories which will bring about the desired thing or circumstance that you desire. Do not be too concerned with gaps in the pictures, but supply your own imagination bridges to cross the gaps. The main idea is to whip up your desire emotions so that they produce an effect on your subconsciousness. Excuse me. In carrying out these dreams, let yourself go. Make the characters in the picture say and do what you want them to do. However, you had better not picture actual persons that you know doing these things. Real persons are apt to feel your work, and the feelings will set up currents of opposition to your proposals. Work only with imaginary persons and imaginary pictures of things, or real pictures of things, but imaginary pictures of persons. What you are doing is working with the counterparts of the real things, and you can have a large degree of control over the counterparts that you cannot get over the real persons and or things. I have prepared a lesson on this subject of how to control or influence a job. I have prepared a lesson on this subject of how to control or influence a job, lodge, town, small city, county, cooperation, companies, or things like that. If you will write me at this address given in this book, I will try to keep the lessons on hand, as well as other lessons on vital subjects. The lessons refer to teach us how to control the above mentioned things through working on the counterparts of those things. The counterparts are far more easier to control than the physical things they represent, and much can be done in working with them. So do not work with real people, as it can be very unsatisfactory in results. Not that it is wicked, just unsatisfactory. The occult law of emotion. As is usual in this work, the occult law of emotions goes over into the next law to come, the reversal law. As these laws are pretty well connected, and especially when we get into these fine spun distinctions as we are doing now, here is another definition of emotion. And an emotion is a thing that is of the nature of nowness. There can be no such thing as future emotion. All emotions are now. You can have an emotion about a thing that you think might come to you in the future, but the emotion you have is right now. You cannot think of an emotion without having it. The previous reasoning is the basis for working with emotions. Another way you can look at it is this: as the next plane to this is reversed, to this one you can regard it as a sort of mirror, and you can see it, that mirror, you can see it, you can see in that mirror the things that you already want. Suppose you come up to that plane as you do to a mirror on this plane, and you hold up something that you want to that plane mirror. In your imagination, well, here's the thing you want visible on that reverse inner plane mirror, and being as it exists there now by your work of visualizing it there. The means of its existence on that inner plane had to come into being too. Just had to, or you could not even see it in your mind picture imagination there. Therefore, by your creation of the imagination image, you brought the means of its existence into being too. And the reason you can do this is because of the reverse nature of the plane next to this plane above. Now look, if you do not get too far off the beam by daydreaming, you can in fantasy trace back a possible line of creation of the mirror object, and then when you get back far enough, attempt to link that fantasy line with your sphere of availability. You can try this. I guess it won't hurt as long as you keep your perspective. Use it in any sort of thinking, feeling, fantasy, daydreaming, planning, researching, whatever it is that suits your nature. Feel free to experiment all you please and do it freely, keeping in mind that you are daydreaming and you know it. But remember that the back of it all lies your sphere of availability and reality. Here at this point, we go off the deep end and start talking about atoms. Elemental forces are things really. Elemental forces are things really real. What is really real? What does real really mean? And so on, but we must be partial. We must be practical. You can say that the intense emotions that you generate, those outstreamers of drawing force that draws the things desired to you, your possession. And this must be true because you usually get the thing you emote for. Of course, in this day and age of multiplied manufacturing processes, we actually do not have to get one certain thing. A duplicate of that thing will surely do. So try to keep this idea in mind. Leave it open. But one thing is certain, you do have the desire, which in turn created the emotion created by the desire. Actually, the way actually the way I am stating this is all wrong. This excuse I didn't even know if y'all probably heard me or not, but anyway, the way it sounds is that you do not work on your sphere of availability unless you want something and then you turn it on. That is wrong. I did not mean to give that idea at all. Your life should be a planned growth of your sphere of availability, with all in order and no wild side trips, as I seem to advocating. In fact, so natural should your building up your sphere of availability become that you sort of forget about it as you go about doing it. Remember, I again repeat, the object of your life should be to build up your sphere of availability so that it can bring you the things you want, and what you want should be what you set your goal for. And to set your goal, you should do some long thinking and planning. If what you want is of the Rolls Royce type of the thing, that you must remember that to get the Rolls Royce, you must have a Rolls Royce type sphere of availability. Until you do have that, you won't get the car. However, there is one positive thing you can say, and that is this: the successful steps of building properly and correctly and perfectly, and a few other things, you can build up your sphere of availability so that you can reach the Rolls Royce type of sphere of availability, supply base. I do not think anyone will urge against that. Oh my God. Here we are, my friend. Here we are, my friend. Y'all up, man? You still here, man? You made it this far with me. We gonna lay down on this one, man. Lay down on these boys on this one, man. Woo. Farce, thank you. Okay. I am reading over these pages for the last time before they go to the printer. And it's Levoy in finality. I am reading over these pages for the last time before they go to the printer. When from then on, changes will be hard to make. Small changes, yes. Large changes, no. I wonder, did I leave anything out? What obvious thing more should I have said? It may come to me in the dead of the night. I hope I got it all and more does not come. Well, I can't think of anything more to say right now. For one thing, I could have written better prose. But if I don't stop sometime, I find I can go on endlessly improving the words and sentences, revising endlessly. And if I did that, I don't know when I would ever get through with a book at all. I will cover / hedge up again for myself by saying, as I said in my first book, I am not trying to write glorious brochure literature that would carry my name down in history as an author. I will never be a great writer / author. No, I am writing only to get down basic occult knowledge and basic occult knowledge working directions, and that on a very difficult subject, perhaps the most difficult subject in the whole world, the subject of man and his powers, and how to use them to protect himself from the hurts of the physical plane. Certainly, this is a subject to a stranger, anyone's ability / confidence as to know for sure just how to handle properly and correctly, much less to teach properly. I do this writing job not to help myself, not to help you, but to teach you, to help you, to help yourself. I have been expecting to be accused of writing too few pages on such a large subject. I must admit that I did not pad out the pages of the book, nor did I pad out the pages of the first book to make the books larger. Please note that the paper is quite thin and that there are more words on a page than is usual in books, especially the older books in which a thicker paper was used and a different kind of ink had to be absorbed with that paper. I tried very hard to go right to the core / heart of the occult and in as simple language as possible explain the basic knowledge of the art of getting material things to creative visualization. I then laid out the tools of the trade followed by as practical working directions of using the tools as possible. I tried to keep things clear and to the point, not going too much into rapturous new thought gush about divine love eat out as against cold intellectualism, neither extreme of which will get us anywhere. I wrote for the earnest, average student person so he could understand the material and use it. So, for heaven's sake and your own sake, learn the art of creative visualization and use it. Ophel welcomes correspondence from those who are interested in the subject of this book and occult subjects. Ophel will answer your letters and answer your questions as quickly as he can. Some of those answers may consist of printed material, but Ophel will always attempt to add a personal note. Ophel does ask that everyone sending a letter enclose $1 if you can afford it. If you cannot afford it, then write by all means, but state you cannot. You can state that you cannot donate. Foreign money can be accepted. All monies go for expenses, believe me. None of it is spent into riotous living near fear. Never fear. Plans have been made to open an occult mystery school to teach the occult arts, probably in Los Angeles. The school will teach the occult arts freely and hold nothing back, nor will any silly oaths be required of students. Students will be free to use the occult knowledge they gave in any way they choose. The first instructions to be given out will be strictly self-help, self-development, self-attainment, mental magic, entirely for the betterment of the student in all ways and for those who need it. I do mean purpose-wise first. I do mean pursuer-wise first. In time, other magic subjects will be added, such as correspondence magic, sympathetic magic, natural magic, and finally ritual magic, and correspondent magic, sympathetic magic, natural magic, and finally ritual magic, and variations of all these kinds. Announcement. It was announced previously that a book would be offered containing an extraordinary, simple, easy-to-use system of divination, not fortune-telling, which was to be called the Oracle of Fortuna. However, this book seemed to arouse so little interest that I put it aside for the time being. I am unable to account for this lack of interest, and the only thing I can think of is that there are so many fake fortune-telling systems in the world that the Oracle of Fortuna was considered just another one of them. Since then, I have tested the Oracle of Fortuna more thoroughly for all kinds of test questions work. I have found it so good that I am unable to take advantage of its powers due to the fact that I have never been able to before to obtain advanced information about events and circumstances, and I do not know how to use such information to best advantage. And this is something I have never heard said about any fortune-telling device. However, unless more people express an interest in the book, I cannot put it out. I would appreciate hearing from you about your ideas as to what I should do with the Oracle of Fortuna. Dynamite announcement. Everyone is clairvoyant to some degree. Clairvoyance is one of the man's basic powers, one of the natural powers of all man. Increased proper controlled use of clairvoyance can be of great help in your daily life. However, clairvoyance alone will not solve all your problems. No single development of any one occult power can do that. You should develop all your powers as fast as you can, as fast as you find out about them, and then they must be used in connection with your physical powers, now largely unknown and not understood. In fact, the biggest obstacle to the easy use of clairvoyance is not becoming clairvoyant or getting new information through clairvoyance, but is interpreting clairvoyant information / knowledge, and then to accept the evidence / information so given or so obtained. Once these two hurdles are passed, you should find, through the use of clairvoyance, your life straightening out in a marvelous way, and circumstances also working out in the way you desire. Ophiel has started work on a book to be called The Art and Practice of Clairvoyance. In this book, Ophiel will go back to first principles, as he always does, and build up the mechanics of the art of clairvoyance from them. If you are interested in this forthcoming book, your inquiry can hasten its printing and presentation. Hermpans are the names of the two god forces who rule the earth plane. I bid you to look to them for guidance upon your earth journey. According to the teachings of the Kabbalah system, they represent the highest god of the earth physical plane. Hold on, y'all. God dang. Hold on. I ate too many beans, man. Too many beans, man. Woo. Too many beans, man. We're gonna have to cut the heater on and light up an incense in here, probably. Cause woo. I know I ate some beans, but I ain't think I ate that many beans. Whew. We almost done, man. We have to write that down too. Write that down. Bruh, the lighter was just out. Like, what? That's crazy. It was what? How was it before it did? Bruh, it just popped up. I love the insect, man. I can't do it, by lake. Can't do it. Too many beans. Too many beans. Ooh, my eyes starting to get red in here, man. I can't do it, probably. Can't do it. Alright, man, y'all. Hold on, man. Put my phone on the charger, too. Let me write that name down for the Earth gods. So maybe I can get in contact with them. Or it's he or she. Get in contact with them. Whoa. Are the two god forces who rule the earth plane. Okay. Alright, y'all. You're almost at 2 hours with this. According to the teachings of the Kabbalah system, they represent the highest God on the earth physical plane. Addenda. As this book, my second book, approaches the final stages of being printed, there arises the opportunity of adding a few more pages, and I hereby do so. First of all, I have an apology to make for the delay in the appearance of this book. This book was ready 3 years ago and actually gone to the printer when a series of happenings occurred which effectively prevented its appearance at that time. The first thing that happened was the passing of my mother, Her death left a mess of problems which were not solved for several years, and this unfortunately took my mind off occult work, which is, as you know, very exalting and demanding, exacting and demanding, and is especially for me. The second thing that happened was the deflection of a trusted coworker who, during my absence, removed many books and prepared lessons and tried to set up a school for himself using a name similar to mine, and until this was known, receiving my mail and much money sent therein, he failed naturally, but not until he caused me much embarrassment in many ways, and also with the post office, to whom people complained instead of writing to me direct, which subject will be treated later in this addenda. Another question you could ask at this point is, why didn't the forces of the occult warn of the impending trouble? And the answer is, the occult forces did give plenty of warnings, but due to lack of application to simple rudiments of attention, the warnings at the time passed by me. However, so profound was this lesson in warnings that I got enough material out of it for a book to be written later on the subject of occult warnings. Please read the following carefully, as announced policy is now in force. If you have any cause or think you have for complaint against Oldfield, lessons, money sent, whatnot, then write your complaint to Oldfield direct and wait for an answer. Oldfield might be out of town or away on an occult business and magic investigations in other countries, Mexico, Africa, England, with covings connections, etc. You will receive an answer sooner or later. Oldfield, as worldly goods goes, is rich and has no need to steal any money from you or anyone else, and does not do so. Therefore, anyone making a complaint to the post office about Oldfield will be taken care of if correct, but will then be cut off from all future occult communications of any kind with Oldfield, and whatever other psychic measures are necessary will be taken to adjust matters all around accordingly. Any of you who had made previous contact with me, several organizations attempts by Oldfield, please recontact him again, and you will receive full credit for previous donations in any future setup. A word as to letters. Airmail type is, of course, the best kind of postal service. Occasionally you may use special delivery if you feel the need to. However, do not use registered letter mail service, as many times it takes much longer to reach me than any other kind of mail service. The occult is the first and last great unknown. The basic phenomena of the occult are open to two kinds of studies work: the first discovery and the second application. First discovery of powers, and second discovery of application of these powers. First discovery of powers, and second discovery of application of these powers. We will devote ourselves to these twin occult works to the best of our ability for the rest of our life, and that you should benefit by it is our only wish. Oldfield. Let me see. Yeah, not that many. For thousands of years. No, zoom in. Stop. For thousands of years, people have written about God. Endless persons, authors have endeavored to explain about God and the mysteries of the physical world. Many of these people, authors, had only a faint grasp themselves of what it was all about. Hence, their writings were hazy and nebulous and voluminous. I like that word. Others had secrets unavailed to them by secret lodges and were unable to tell all, and so had to talk all around the subject, not saying anything vital, and the end result was worse than no God book at all. Still others were fakes, pure and simple fakes. The best of the fakes were the real fakes, who sooner or later gave themselves away. They were the pure fakes. The simple fakes were the worst and the most dangerous, as they believed in their own fakery. Dang, the simple fakes were the worst and the most dangerous, as they believe in their own fakery. The test of God book should be, does it work? Or is it just talk chatter? The books written by Ophir work. Ophir's first book was called The Art and Practice of Astral Projection. The directions in this book are so clear and concise that many persons are able to enter other planes and explore and learn. Thousands of people all over the world have read this book and have practiced projection to inner planes and have gained knowledge from it. I could write a book just about the benefits to be gained from the exploration of the inner planes, but that would not cover the subject properly. This book is truly a breakthrough in occult progress. For the first time, the previously secret methods of building and developing the astral body are given with clear, simple directions that can be practiced in daily life. Ophir's second book was The Name of the Art and Practice of Getting Material Things to Create a Visualization. The question of material supply has always been a vexing one. There was always a practice known for ages called visualization, but the rules were never clear. In his second book, Ophir lays down some effective rules which many people have used successfully. Ophir now knows much more about the origins of things, and in later books would tell more about God and supply. But for ordinary circumstances of life, the normal processes of creative visualization will surface until until the other books are written and published. So look for them. Ophir's third book was called The Art and Practice of the Occult. In this book, Ophir begins to study and use the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life in all of its million ramifications, as well as the knowledge of the elemental forces. Also, a simple ritual is given, which is very useful in many ways, deeper than the other books. Ophir's fourth book was called The Art and Practice of Clairvoyance. Everyone has some clairvoyance in them, and the more you listen to it, the more it works for you. The book also contains additional Kabbalah knowledge. The more Kabbalah clairvoyance knowledge you have and use, the easier life here on this physical plane can be. Says the more Kabbalah clairvoyance knowledge you have and use, the easier your life here on this physical plane can be. Ophir's fifth book, The Occult of Fortuna, contains a simple little divination system based on the game of solitaire, which can answer questions if the questions are framed carefully and properly. Ophir's sixth book was called The Art and Practice of Talismanic Magic. Talismanic magic. This ancient subject is brought up to date. It is possible to use the astral light by attaining it to an object, if done with intention and knowledge. Interesting results can be obtained, should be used with caution. Ophir's seventh book is now in preparation. Look for it. It has been kicking around the publishers much too long, but strange forces have been at work to keep it from you. Ophir has been told that his books contain the secret doctrine, and as I said, negative forces have been furious for years that these things are becoming known, and have been working in every possible way to keep these books from coming out. Ophir wants to write 25 books before he passes on, and he will not give up easily. But you will have to do your part. You have to ask and continue to ask this publisher to get onto publishing Ophir's books and cut out the fooling around. In preparation, look for it. Ophir's seventh book, The Art and Practice of Kabbalah Magic. Dion Fortune wrote a great book about the Kabbalah, but told nothing about the practices. Ophir's seventh book starts to tell about how to use the Tree of Life or practices. How he reveals what Dion Fortune left out because she received her knowledge from a lodge and was not at liberty to give it out. Ophir received the knowledge direct from the inner sources and can give it out freely. He received the knowledge direct from the inner sources and he can give it out freely. Use it and test it and find out for yourself. Tentative books in preparation at this time. 2 more books are in preparation. One is a collection of essays based on occult truth factors. Ophir calls them vaginates. They are now sold separately because they have to be prepared by hand, as it were. Contains much occult humor and insight. to occult ideas and much occult truth. I repeat, watch for it. Next, there is to be a book on the existence of the demigorgs, the mystery of mysteries, the god of the Gnostics, which is all material things. If the demigorge, no demiurge, if the demigorges or the demiurges can be contacted properly and used, you have the philosopher's stone, which changes all things into gold, and that is no bull. If the demiurges or demigorgs can be contacted properly and used, you have the philosopher's stone, which changes all things into gold, and that is no bull. And beyond this, other books are projected, but you will have to do your part by letting this publisher know. Other books are projected, but you have to do your part by letting this publisher know that you demand these books and that you want them, and no more fooling around with the adversary, misleading everyone about their publishing. Let him know. Ophel is not so young, and if you want these books, he had better get them out. Ophel is 73 years old, so act accordingly. Dear students and friends of Ophel, for some years now past, Ophel has been writing little essays on pungent occult subjects. These essays he calls occult vengeance. The subjects of these essays have been legion and have been of wide variance, from trivial to grand, but all have dealt with some essential points of vital information interest, either of life here on this earth plane or life on the inner planes. As time has passed, he was written more and more of these little essays of truth until they now number as a respected amount, merely for identification purposes. The essays are labeled Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, and now Series 4. Series 4 have been copyrighted and now is ready, and here they are, described as follows. Got something to drink, dog. They put up this incense too. I don't want to have too smoky in here. All right. Series 3, number 1, 1975, Winter Solstice Message, $1.50, strong presentation of occult truth surrounding Christmas, winter seasons, New Year's, and other post-pagan holidays. Personal message. Series 3, number 2, Thought on the Ten Commandments, 16 pages, $3. Ophel's analysis of the Ten Commandments and some annotations on their applications to today's living being. Heavy stuff. If you are not ready, better not get it, as it is heavy, really heavy, and to sloppy thinkers it will be a real shock, as for the first time they face reality and truth. 3. Living Life, Occult Vintage, Occult Vintanet, 4.5 pages, $1.25. Rather deep essay about living daily life and calling attention to the personal manufacture of thought forms and their effects on our lives, and some references to their effects on others. Some ideas as to how to nullify adverse through forms effects. 4. The Happiness Doll, 1 page, 25 cents. What is not generally known is that all magical operations, especially black ones, can be reversed. The size of the recording video is not 5. Can you continue to record? We almost done. Can be reversed. The famous, or rather pen stocking doll, can be reversed so that you can set up a self doll and give it all kinds of goodies. Can be very useful to your well-being. 5. What is a man? 3.5 pages. Introduces to the Gnostic idea of a worker god who creates the physical world out of no thing and gives some ideas as to how to handle the creator god, the demiurges or the demigorges. Once you handle it, you got it. made, and you can now do things. Introduces the Gnostic idea of a worker, God who creates the physical world. Out of no thing, and gives some ideas as to how to handle the Creator God. Creator God, the demi-gorgeous. Once you handle it, you got it made, and you can now do things. 6, the dweller on the threshold, 6.5 pages, $1.50. The title is dated, but the knowledge is up to date. Concerns forces on the next plane, and how you have probably built up your own opposite. Continues with ideas about how to handle your daily life with these forces in view, and how these forces are to be taken into account in all your actions. The object being emotional intelligence, emotional regulation. Where am I at? Build up your own opposite. Continues with the ideas about how to handle your daily life with these forces in view, and how these forces are to be taken into account in all your actions. The object being to lead a more perfect life and to get along better. 7, why do you let the devil use you? 5 pages, $1.25. Contains ideas and suggestions as to how to work your two parts, conscious and subconscious minds. The badly working sub mind is like a devil, and how to watch for the alternating functioning of the two minds. 8, more ideas about God. 7.5 pages, $1.50. Ophel explains how certain ideas about the conception of the lesser continuance was arrived at, and how they transform over into the idea of the demi-gorgeous. Then follow a number of ideas as to how you are to arrive at a working knowledge of this situation and work it to your advantage. 9, Astrolight, the plastic medium, 4 pages, $1. Unexpected use and application of the astrolight by a student, which surprised even me, suggests terrific opportunities and limit for all kinds of physical changes to be brought about through its use in a simple way. Could be considered hot stuff by many. Zoom out. How many we got, man? Okay. 10, the outer you, 5 pages, $1.25. Contains a thought-provoking idea of the double that you may have, and gives some ideas about how to deal with this startling, different than the world thinks situation. Also deals with thought forms in this connection. Useful. 11, your other you, 5.5 pages, $1.30. Note the difference in the title from the preceding. Several different ideas are presented here as they came to me, and I did not edit them. You separate the ideas and reconnect them. Great value requires some studying, but you should be rewarding. 12, a technique of visualization. I think 1.2 pages, 75 cents. Concerns you and the demi-origins in your ability to creatively visualize under proper directions and without proper preparations, something which is never realized by countless people, and yet they do produce negative creations which they don't want all the time. Useful to you. 13, what you deserve or you tell them, baby. 2 pages, 75 cents. Goes into the question of God rewards and questions whether they are automatic. They can be automatic, but you have to tell them or it yourself. 14, assistance from the gods. 2 pages, 2.2 pages, 75 cents. Concise directions on how to work interplane forces down here for results. Good basic directions, just waiting for use. 15, treasure map, 1.5 pages, 50 cents. Description and directions as to manufacture and use this ancient talisman. This talisman worked for your ancestors millions of years ago, and it can and will still work for you if you will use it. 16, a magic workings on matter, 1.5 pages, 75 cents. Small, short, and potent, contains a concise explanation of the translation of force into form. 16, on the art of contacting God, 1.5 pages, 50 cents. This Vincinet is a little hard to understand, so I am charging less for it. Deals with attitudes in daily life, is exemplified in everyday cliches, how attitudes can rule you, and suggests a method of dealing with them, not easy. 17, Plato and the Soul, 2 pages, 50 cents. Like, I don't know why I say keep saying $50, 50 cents. For some mysterious reason, about 20,000 years ago, there were no definitely taught ideas about life after death. None of the religions that were then current in the world taught such an idea except in a fragment way. Then Plato thought about a continuation of life after death. He was talking about the etheric body, but the church mistook that idea of the etheric body for a thing called the soul. 18. The Two Dreamers, 3 pages, 75 cents. More about the two gods that created the existence of the world and some clarification as to how you are on your own as to your choice of arranging your life with your powers, which you and all others have. 19. Your disloyal life opposition, 5 pages, $1.50. There is some evidence that we are made up of two continuing forces which seem to rule alternately in our lives and bodies. A successful life is one that can adjust the balance between these two forces. Once it is known that there are these two forces, some defense can be set up against the negative one. 20. An exercise in preliminary projection. 2 parts, $1. More information on etheric projection and information on some additional sidelines connected thereto. 21. The Two Creators, 2.5 pages, $1.25. More knowledgeable information about the two creators who between them had made up the physical world. Much interesting and useful information. 22. A little recapitulation of the occult basis of all things, 1.5 pages, 50 cents, as it says, a recapitulation of some of the basics I have written about so far in their relation to older cliche stuff that we got tired of so many years ago, as it apparently led nowhere. Some value for thought. 23. Witchcraft, 5 pages, $1.25. Natural witchcraft forces are exemplified in this study of the application of raw nature to very material natural forces by American Indians in time past. Close study would show that all witchcraft is a combination of the inner and the outer. And the line is not too clear. Pretty good and pretty useful. All right, I think that's it. This is an image, a symbol. Oh, this is the cutout. Probably try to get these symbols printed or something. Well, that's it, y'all. Took about 4 hours, but as y'all can see, The Art and Practice of Getting Material Things to Create a Visualization by Ophir. Read this whole book, 65 pages, PDF file. I'm gonna try to get these printed out too and put it on my treasure chart, which is a vision board, you can say. I actually gotta update my vision board because it's coming off a little bit. But man, when I say P, I mean profit. When I say S, I mean see. You dig what I'm saying, baby? Now let's keep it moving. Follow the feng shui. With that being said, man, I'm out. Y'all have a good one.